Hello, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martin Lovers. I'm the Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. You may also know me as the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, the European Quarterly. I'm also the designer of the SCM IT Subway Map. And I will be moderating this interesting webinar the next 60 minutes plus 30 minutes after talk. And we'll have an interesting conversation about future-proof fulfillment with robotization. So with me, like always, I have interesting experts about this matter. So on the left, you see me. You have seen my picture way before. Sarah Gardner, say hi to our audience.
Hello.
So Sarah has a background in industrial IoT, working for Hitachi, but also working for Johnson Controls, and we'll explain about that later. And next to Sarah is Varun. Varun, hi.
Hello, hi everyone.
And Varun, already started as an intern in 2013 at GreyOrange in India, moved to Germany later on. So did a lot of implementing this exciting stuff in the last decade and more. So he will talk about all this later. All right. Some practical things. This webinar will be recorded, and we make sure that this presentation will be made available as a PDF within 48 hours or even quicker. Everybody is on mute right now, the audience, but feel free to ask questions. So on the right-hand side in AirMeet in the platform, you will see the chat functionality, and next to that on the right, you see the Q&A functionality. So please ask questions in the Q&A functionality. So I'll pick it up. If these questions are in line of the topics we are having at that moment, with Sarah or Varun, I will ask these questions right away. If not, we will have a Q&A at the end. So then you have the opportunity to get the answers. And if there are still more questions, or if you want to have a further conversation right away, we will have 30 minutes after talk. So after the hour, we will be sitting down at table 1. So you can join Varun, Sarah, and myself there, and you have a direct conversation if you want to. So, there's a lot of opportunity to ask questions. So please make it interactive and join us. And, I think it's quite interesting to talk about this. All right. Next, GreyOrange and Supply Chain Media created a mind map about fulfillment automation. And this is how you can see it. You can download it, and we'll explain it later. But Sarah, maybe you can tell a bit more. We talk about digital transformation, and we talk about fulfillment. Maybe you can address this topic a bit more.
Sure. happy to start with that. So first of all, just a quick level set. Digital transformation, what does it really mean? I mean, for me, in its simplest terms, really all it means is the integration of various different digital technologies into all areas of a business. And really that tends to have much more transformative approach, benefits than maybe what we've seen in the past with just automating the back office. So the back office of supply chain has been automated for many years, but once you can kind of go right the way down into the coal face, as I like to call it, then you can get much more transformative results. And when I say transformative results, I'm talking about everything from operational efficiency and throughput and cost reduction, customer experience, employee empowerment, product service different. I mean, really right the way across the board. There's so many different places that digital technologies can play a role. So AI, machine learning, robotics, cloud, IoT. So really, if you look at this mind map, it's capturing all of these different trends. It's capturing all of the technology trends that we're starting to see that are having a transformative effect on the supply chain. And it's also capturing a lot of the business issues and problems as well. So the big macro trends and the impact that those are having on companies. And then at the bottom part, walking through some of the specific problems that are created in the supply chain that are resulting in those big impacts, and what are the solutions to address. And that's really where today's webinar comes in. This is kind of a part of a 3-part series, if you remember, Martin. And this will be the final part where we'll actually walk through how these technologies like robotic automation are actually able to enable companies to make these sorts of transformations. And I'll just finish this slide with my favorite quote at the bottom. I've been using this quote for years. I love this quote. If you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. And I think the important thing here is that with the pandemic and everything else that's happened, a lot of these digitalization changes that were already happening kind of got accelerated and went from being a choice to an imperative. So that's one of the reasons that we're obviously talking today. It's top of mind, lots of innovation, lots happening, and we've got some really great examples to show you based on our experience in the marketplace.
Yeah, and to read this mind map, I don't go much into detail about it, but the upper half is strategic and the lower end is executional. The left hand side is the outside focus, and the right hand side is the inside focus. So this is how you read it, and it's a circle, And what you explained, Sarah, we're going through these circles way quicker. We have to accelerate. And it's what we're experiencing now with COVID-19, but also with the war in Ukraine. Things are happening quite fast, or even faster than they used to go. And that's also something we express in this mind map. We can download it and then we'll discuss it. And now this mind map is addressing all kind of industries, not only retail. But now if we go look into retail, at the end of the supply chain, there's a lot of things happening. Maybe you can discuss a bit more about this. What you're saying, retail supply chains are at a crossroad. Maybe you can explain about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we probably could have filled several slides with a lot of these very, amazing kind of statistics, mind-blowing statistics that are happening right now in terms of some of the changes and pressures are in the market. But I just pulled a few out because I think these are the key things that we see. First of all, I mean, there's no question on the e-commerce side. I mean, that's a big driver for why we're feeling pressure in the industry overall. And I pulled a figure there for Europe, 20%. Rise, which maybe doesn't sound much in itself, but you've got to remember this is double the normal year-on-year growth, which was already aggressive, and it didn't kind of recede. It stayed at that point and then started to continue to grow. And apparel, home improvement, grocery, very much in Europe. These were some of the big ones that have gone up. And there's no question, of course, that Amazon is the big driver of e-commerce. But the reason that Amazon is as big as they are is because of, in large part, robotic automation. So this is something that definitely has driven a lot of the automation needs in the market. A second one is the expectation. Again, you've got to thank Amazon for this. They've created these expectations of fast delivery next day. And we know that a huge number of abandoned shopping carts for online shopping, those are because of people not happy with the delivery promise that the company is giving. So that's another area that's really pressurizing companies. If they can't deliver at the same sort of levels as Amazon, they're going to lose business. And again, speeding things up, enabling things to move through the system faster, another area that automation can help. And actually, coming back to that as well, this is certainly true in the US. I'm not as sure it's true across all of Europe, but certainly in the US, people, they want it yesterday, but they also want the retailers to eat the cost of delivering that new level of service. So we're also seeing a lot of additional cost to retailers. It's really squeezing their margins. And again, automation can help kind of reduce some of the costs of doing that and relieve some of the burden. And finally, the global labor shortage. I mean, this seems to be true everywhere. And as you mentioned up front, Martin, I come from industrial IoT, and it's the same problem in industrial IoT. There's just not the number of people needed to actually staff the warehouses to deliver the level of needs that we have right now. I mean, there's so much pressure there. So nearly 70% of businesses in Europe was the statistic I pulled there. And again, this is where automation can help. It's about increasing the productivity of the people that you have. It actually improves job satisfaction too. And at the same time, it's filling in the gaps where you literally can't get enough people in order to staff a warehouse. So lots of areas that automation can help with some of these really big top of mind market pressures that are going on right now.
Yeah, and what you especially are seeing in Europe is that you see speedy grocery delivery, bike couriers popping up in Berlin and in Amsterdam, all over the cities, as part of as a result of the lockdowns during COVID. But they're here to stay with the new startup like Getir and Gorillas. but maybe they are competing with Amazon to some extent. I don't know, not so much bikes in US, but you see it in Europe, growing rapidly. But they have to connect to the supply chains and to processes
Yes.
in the back office, and we'll talk about that later. Yeah, and click and collect is on the rise also because of the lockdowns during COVID. But maybe, sorry, just to address the omni-channel fulfillment, because there are so many channels, but that's very challenging to manage.
Yeah, that's definitely what we've seen with it. I know that Rune's got a really good example he's going to talk about in a moment about omni-channel fulfillment and how we were able to really help one of our customers in that space. But yeah, now it's got to a stage where, particularly when you think about what happened during the pandemic, I mean, stores needed to pivot and figure out how they were going to make revenue and think about all sorts of different selling channels, and that means different fulfillment. That means problems that it may not have had to deal with before, like a lot of returns. And so, with an omni-channel fulfillment strategy in the warehouse, you're basically introducing a lot more complexity. There's more nodes involved to deliver and move goods between. There's more unpredictability. And before I hand over to Varun, some of the things that we've heard when we've gone out there and talked to our customers is how do they get greater visibility if they're doing omni-channel fulfillment. They want to know the location of inventory and what's the closest to the consumer that they're trying to ship those goods to. And also, it's not just about solving the problems from today. I mean, nobody expected the pandemic. I mean, it literally came out of nowhere. So we need to protect ourselves against the next situation that we don't know where the next situation is coming from. So I think, what we're hearing from our customers is with omni-channel fulfillment, it's really about flexibility and visibility and orchestrating things so that you can avoid a lot of that complexity. But I think Varun will really showcase that with the first example.
Okay, Varun, can we give you the example of an omnichannel fulfillment from the same distribution center?
Yep. Let me do that. And to do that, I want to briefly cover a case study of our customer called Sodimac. They are an omni-channel home improvement retailer headquartered in Chile, and they have more than 250 large format stores across 7 countries and are expanding rapidly. Now, when they approached us a few years back, they had some simple challenges: high e-commerce growth and a margin squeeze on retail, and wanted to avoid essentially adding another warehouse to their supply chain just yet. And they wanted to see what can be done in their existing warehouse. And since 2017, we have worked quite actively with them and have automated several of their nodes, delivering the benefits that are listed down on this slide essentially.
Okay, maybe you can deep dive into this operation.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to talk about a specific site. I mean, this is one of the larger implementations that we did, right? I mean, and essentially we have undertaken a major overhaul of their warehouse here. If you look at bullet number 1 and 2, this demonstrates how they have been able to manage transport of goods from the goods in area to the reserve storage, which is shown out back in the warehouse where the number 2 bubble is, and also from reserve storage to a multi-level fulfillment forward pick zone. So this entire movement has been made automated, and this has helped them reduce dependence on forklift operators, which were notoriously hard to retain. And I would say not very different from Europe, and this has also significantly improved the safety conditions of their warehouse operations, right? And going further, right, if we look at bubble number 3, right, which is essentially a multi-level zone, you will see floors separated by channels. Now, they're separated by store, other DCs, and e-commerce channels, and these floors are essentially connected via elevators, and there is a goods to person system running across floors. Now, in their original warehouse, they had separate inventories, literally separate stocks for e-commerce and retail picking, and a sorter which was doing consolidation, which being home improvement, they had a very wide ranging SKU size, and the sorter was barely able to cater to 60% of the product sizes. But in contrast to that, when this was implemented, this is essentially one system which is able to handle all their SKUs, and from one inventory set, being able to service multiple channels. And basically the advantage of this was very clear for them. If you see bubble 4 essentially illustrates that a bit, right? What it's trying to illustrate is that initially when the warehouse was planned, they had a much higher percentage of store or retail picking that was supposed to happen. And when COVID hit, we all know there was a much higher proportion of e-commerce and click and collect orders which were being requested from such supply chains. But for them, the bots just had to move from one floor to the other, and they were ready to deliver the kind of orders that they needed to.
Okay.
And yeah.
Question from my side: was it
Mhm.
was this an existing building, existing distribution center, or was it a new one?
Yes, actually, this was an existing distribution center. They had been using the DC since quite some time,
Hmm.
and it was quite a transformation project which we undertook with them. Right, I mean, just to give a sense of scale, right? This was a warehouse which was nearly 10,000 square, sorry, nearly 100,000 square meter overall. Half of the warehouse was VNA racking, and this system is essentially occupying around 10,000 square meter across
Hmm.
4 levels, so 40,000 square meters roughly. And this was all done in running operations with some careful planning. But I mean, these systems are quite modular, and one can essentially plan and take the system live in parts at the same time, deliver from the same warehouse.
Right. Okay. You already mentioned it, Varun, but some typical e-commerce trends. But Sarah, could you address some overall e-commerce fulfillment trends?
Sure, yeah. So I think we've got another example coming up for this one as well. Basically, there's 4 different examples. For e-commerce, I mean, that there's definitely similarities across all of these, right? Labor shortage, lack of visibility. But there were 3 specific challenges that always seem to come up for us with e-commerce. First of all, we talked about it is being competitive, how to achieve same day, next day delivery promises. And also do that, of course, while maintaining business margins. So that's the first one. The second one is handling peaks, particularly when you think about the labor shortage as well. But the biggest challenge, and probably people on the call, if they're in the space, will know this one, is returns. I mean, this is becoming a very well-known issue, and it definitely escalates, of course, during peaks. So quite simply, how do you get the inventory back into stock and avoid marking down as quickly as possible? Someone actually said to me the other day, in many ways, returns is becoming the biggest supplier for warehouses. So lots of challenges around returns.
All right. Maybe Varun, you can give another example, a case study about all this.
Yes, absolutely. So next, I want to cover a case study about a large European multi-brand fashion retailer with a rapidly expanding e-commerce business. As Sarah pointed out, some of the key challenges which they were facing included high returns, constantly changing SKU mix, and of course, severe workforce shortages. And some of the benefits that we've delivered, as you'll see in the next slide. Essentially, I mean, see, we were able to drastically improve the way we were basically fulfilling orders, and significantly also improve on the returns processing, just the way of working there.
Okay. So maybe to have a closer look at the operations, and you can explain how it looks like, and also what you have done, and maybe also what are the challenges to make this happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we looked at improving multiple areas of their operations actually. To improve returns processing, if we see bubble number one,
Hmm.
we are modifying the process using robotics so that we are able to transport specific types of products to specific workstations. And this improves returns processing efficiency and quality. Basically, this way they're able to create specialists within the returns processing workforce, and these specialists could be handling specific types of products, or they could be handling specific brands. And this way it's a very labor intensive process, right? And this is one way to gain advantages here. Another way is typically in existing returns processing operations, what happens is maintaining FIFO, first in first out, becomes extremely challenging. And what that means is the customer who has returned the products first may not get the inventory processed, may not get their refund first, right? And this is of course some impact on the customer experience here. But there is also an impact on, as Sarah was mentioning, right? I mean, if the products sit on the docks, on the inbound docks for long, then that is just lesser inventory available to be sold to the customers. And by implementing such a system, we were able to quickly basically move the products, get the right products processed quickly, and get them back to stock. And also the same system is supporting movement to basically movement to specific refurbishment stations, right? I mean, not all returns could straight away go and join stock, right? Some might require ironing, some might require sewing before they basically join the stock. And basically the same network of robots is able to address this challenge here. And moving on, if we look at bubble number two, which is talking about the picking operations, we have essentially implemented here a combination of human pick and machine pick. And I mean, you can imagine, right? I mean, this drastically brings down the cost per shipment, at the same time reducing the dependence on workforce, right? The bot, which is the picking bot, which is deployed, right? It can work essentially 24/7, and can get the job done. And of course, there is the third bubble also points to some movement which is happening from active, basically the replenishment zone, to the forward fulfillment zone. And in this e-commerce context, I mean, I also want to mention another site which is quite near and dear to us, which is with active ants. They are essentially uh, very proficient in fulfilling e-commerce orders. And active ants is a Belgian post company. Working with them, we have implemented a process in which we are enabling directly pick to order cartons, integrating with the carton closing machines, and once labeling is done, sorting the parcels to appropriate lanes. And we have achieved massive gains, reduction in implementation time and reduction in costs as well. And we've implemented several sites.
Right. I was wondering, Varun, looking at this setup, how do you decide where to use manual picking versus automatic picking by robots?
Yep. That's a very fair point, right? I mean, essentially, for products which are the bot which we see here, right? It can very well pick flat packs quite efficiently,
Hmm.
right? However, it has not been modified to pick hanging garments currently. Therefore, basically, if you on the side, you would see some hanging garment picking being done by the lady there. And essentially, once, I mean, picking is done, consolidating across, basically how do you consolidate the order is another key aspect which gets sorted by this, right? I mean, these big arms, right? I mean, they are in the second and third generation of their life cycle yet. We can't say they can do 100% of the SKUs today, right? But they're improving quite rapidly, believe me.
Yeah. No, I think it's quite fascinating to see this hybrid environment of order picking. All right, thanks, Varun. Sarah, there's a lot of talking about dark stores, especially with the lockdowns, and in rural areas, you see stores being translated into dark stores. Maybe you can tell me a bit more about the development in micro fulfillment.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, the landscape for retail has been changing dramatically over the past 5 years, and again with all the closures and everything that happened during the pandemic, this has been accelerated. So we've seen the same thing over here in the US too. So what is micro fulfillment? Just quickly, bringing everybody on the call up to speed in case some people aren't familiar. It's just basically micro fulfillment. It's taking advantage of small, specific spaces and places to keep inventory closer to customers. And in some instances, those spaces could be in stores, dark stores, in specialist zones, like temperature controlled. If you're talking about grocery, it could be at height to take advantage of dead space, high dead space. I mean, there's lots of different options there. And the key, I think, with micro fulfillment centers, and actually what's so exciting for us about these, is the speed at which existing spaces can actually be transformed and then effectively become a node in the supply network. And I did want to just mention one. I know this is in the US, which is where I'm based, but I was actually out on the East Coast a few weeks back and got to visit. I can't say the name of the company, but it's a large department store out here in the US. And literally, you know, you drive out to a mall. It's a typical kind of American sort of outdoor shopping mall, and there's the store. And other than the fact that the windows are somewhat opaqued out, most of the windows are opaqued out, it still looks like the store. It's still in the same location. You come in through the front, and the front part is a pickup and returns area for customers, and then you walk through the back door, and it's now a warehouse. And that was robots in their automation. I mean, they've completely transformed what was a department store into a micro fulfillment center, and in a very short space of time too. That one was done in 12 weeks, and I think we even have some video of that on our website. So micro fulfillment is definitely something that's very hot right now, and it's also one of those areas for robotic automation where companies can kind of get high results relatively quickly.
Yeah, right. Your example from the US reminds me of IKEA, where you end up walking in the warehouse and picking your stuff yourself. And on the other hand, what we see in Europe is that there are now a breakthrough, I think, with these lockers, the things you see right here. DHL has signed a contract with a scale up here with lockers. So it was, pitched, I think, 5 to 10 years ago, but now it's resurfaced again. So with these lockers as an example of micro fulfillment, will be see happening in Europe right now. But maybe So yeah, sorry.
Just to chime in on that one, this is something that I don't think is as big a deal in Europe, but it just goes to show how we come up with solutions and then we have to pivot again. Porch pirates is a huge big deal in the US. I mean, it's just constantly on the I'm on one of these forums tracking all of the commentary for the neighbors in the neighborhood, and it's a huge problem in the US. So it's a very, very key in that in that instances. But really, in all of these instances, it's about providing choice and flexibility. And again, I mean, that's the great thing about putting in an automation system and really kind of orchestrating end to end the process, because you have the ability to kind of pivot and switch into these different types of fulfillment models much easier.
Yeah, Innovate Supply Chain event is a event of ours, and part of it is a European startup and scale-up contest. So we have this contest again, and we have 29 contestants from all over Europe joining our event in May. But one of the contestants is Pick Me from France, and in Paris they have some similar startup where you have local areas you can drop off your stuff at your neighbor or some a neighborhood central point like this, where you can have this micro lockers as an example. So also you see startup and scale up initiatives in Europe around this, micro fulfillment area. Okay, enough said from my side. Varun, could you explain something about the case studies GreyOrange has done?
Yep, absolutely. So when COVID hit, right, several retail stores had to close, creating this new breed of fulfillment nodes, right, what we call micro fulfillment. Now, this specific customer also had to convert a large format store into a fulfillment node, and I mean, the process of that essentially was pretty straightforward. Rip out some of the shelves that you have, and they wanted to process e-commerce orders and some of the other channels effectively from there, and therefore they started looking at such an automation. And being closer to the customer, I mean, you had to you had to be flexible in fulfilling demand across various channels, right? I mean, at the same time, the solution still has to be easy to relocate and making good utilization of the available height, because this is closer to customers, so space is very premium, right? And so we had to co-develop a solution which makes more sense in such an environment, essentially.
Okay. And the quick deployment is very important, but as we have seen in lockdowns, with the
Absolutely.
pivot quite quickly. So here it is a closer look. So please, Varun, please explain what we are looking at.
Yes, with pleasure. So basically, if you see here, right? I mean, this is a dynamic storage, right? The bubble number 1 and 2 will point out to basically what the solution is about, right? This is the industry nickname for this type of system is Robo Shuttle. It's like a mobile, flexible type of shuttle.
Mhm.
And bubble 3 also illustrates how this type of system can integrate with pick and place automated systems. But I mean, the most interesting thing I find here, and this is again related to the topic which you were mentioning, right? We were discussing earlier about lockers, and this is being illustrated in bubble number 4, right? What the most beautiful thing about this system is that it's able to integrate with lockers, right? Now, traditionally, I mean, if we talk to the discussions that I have had with retailers in the past few months, is that they find, I mean, there's quite an attraction of lockers, right? Because yeah, you don't need to do the last mile, of course, and it's convenient for customers as well. But they are somewhat problematic, right? I mean, in the sense that you are literally dependent on the customer retrieving the order from the locker, and unless that happens, the locker remains occupied. That locker cannot be allocated to another customer, and as demand for click and collect increases, you will very quickly run out of lockers to allocate to your customers, right?
Mhm.
And what we are doing here is essentially the entire storage system has been essentially become available to the lockers, right? I mean, by separating the front and the back of the lockers, and by doing a just in time type of fulfillment to the lockers when the customers arrive, this basically is able to revolutionize the locker business. And lastly, I think having such a fulfillment center, an efficient fulfillment center, which is doing e-commerce orders close to where the customers are, you can definitely decrease the amount of emissions that you're causing, right? And I think that is also a very key driver for a lot of retailers. You don't need to transport picked orders across large distances, send them across multiple sortation warehouses, which usually ends up contributing to a lot of carbon emissions. And micro fulfillment is essentially the solution to that.
Yeah, and it's quite fascinating. This setup, as a modular setup, you can also imagine this in the back end of a shop, or a larger shop in a shopping mall. So this is quite interesting to see that this could be intelligent back end of a locker, like you said,
Yeah.
because otherwise, if you have just a locker, it's quite hard, because all those lockers will be filled up. So that there has to be more intelligence behind that. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, but now we get to the stores, Sarah. Now we can talk about stores. Can you establish a bit more about what's happening in stores and how we to deal with all this?
Sure. So yeah, so store fulfillment then. So this is a very specific subset of really what we've already discussed in the last example, and it's as this one suggests in its name, it's about practical ways in which we can turn an active store into a live node in our supply network. So really help us in the execution of when people buy online and want to pick up in store, and buy online and ship to store, and click and collect. So again, a lot of similar issues to the scenarios that we've already discussed, but some very specific context and angles particular to this deployment scenario. So for example, how do we bring the store truly into our supply chain, so that there's real visibility and control over the store stock, along with the rest of the inventory that we have? That's one of the things that is top of mind to people. How we overlay the efficiencies of putting away goods, the overall task and labor efficiency when you're kind of mashing that up with needing to be serving customers in the store. How do you pick orders faster? Again, coming back to click and collect orders too. I mean, there's a lot of different dimensions when you have a location that is an active store and doing fulfillment at the same time. And we have another example here that is doing just that, right, Varun?
Yep.
But before we get into that, I'm curious. Sarah, in the US, you have a lot of shopping malls, and some shopping malls are thriving. Others are less so because of the rise of e-commerce and the decline. Do you see, as a whole, shopping malls also as e-fulfillment centers as a possibility in that matter?
No, absolutely. I mean, very, very similar to that example that I just gave with the department store on the East Coast. I mean, absolutely, because I mean, that particular store location, maybe the mall was suffering with foot traffic, but that location was a very, very good hub for a lot of presumably very lucrative to that particular retailer customer market around that area. So I mean, definitely. I mean, it just makes sense.
Okay, all right. Okay, if Roon, give me an example of this fulfillment solution.
Yep. Sure thing. So I believe a lot of the challenges I mentioned by Sarah are compounded by the availability of not so great IT and software systems when it comes to store, and the sanctity of information available from retail stores is usually found to be quite low in terms of inventory traceability, location management, and analytics available. And because of this, availability in shelves can be at times unreliable. And customers also typically face long wait times when they go to collect their pre-ordered products, right? And so the uh, I mean, main issues bothering the stores are, like, I mean, they're located in cities, high cost of workforce, high rents, and always increasing SKU mix is definitely doesn't help when it comes to solving for store fulfillment, right? And these are some of the benefits that one looks to gain when it comes to store fulfillment.
Yes, but when I look at the stores, back stores, and front stores,
Mhm.
before COVID, stores in general want to, get rid of the back stores, make them smaller. But as you can explain that there is an essential part of all this in the back store.
Exactly. So, I mean, right before COVID, people really wanted to minimize the amount of backstore. But after COVID, right? I mean, essentially, people have become much more demanding, and now people have started to think what is the best place you could potentially fulfill an order from, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's a matter of now looking at your entire supply chain, where all inventory is existing, and what is the best location for that order to get fulfilled. And as a result, what has happened is quite a lot of the stores have been given the additional responsibility of picking more and more e-commerce orders. And to this effect, I want to first cover the case study which is shown in the top right hand corner.
Hmm.
I want to cover that in the context of backstore operations, right? I mean, this is essentially with a large European home improvement retailer, which you can probably guess by the blue and yellow color theme.
Hmm.
And they had been doing some e-commerce picking from store before they implemented automation. However, the productivity was terribly low, right? And by implementing automation, they have not only been able to get significant improvement in productivity, but they've also been able to add several additional channels such as click and collect, express order fulfillment, in addition to basically smoother store replenishment operations. You see, and just on the rest of the slide, I just want to add one more point, right, which is not directly related to back of store, right? It starts in the warehouse itself, right? I mean, if we look at bubble number one, right? I mean, this is again something that we did with Sodi Mac. Essentially, we started planning the store orders um, in the warehouse itself, and that warehouse which we saw in the beginning, right? That was able to keep in mind what the layout of a specific store looks like. And essentially the idea was to create trolleys which are specific to that store, so that when the trolley gets to that store, you can straight away unload it from the truck. No need to stage it, sort it, or do any processing in the back store, right? Therefore we saved a lot of space in back store there. And essentially you can straight away take that trolley into the aisles and straight away replenish to store locations, thereby improving the productivity in store operations.
Yeah. Now, I think this is a fascinating overview because what I mentioned earlier, a lot of uh, dark stores are popping up, but to mix a dark store as a back store next to your front store, you get a better efficiency and also better use of existing environments. So this is a great visualization of how to manage it. And I also know that a Dutch grocery retailer, Jumbo, is also connecting to one of these bike couriers. And basically, there's a huge challenge, I would say, to get this gorillas and getters connected to this backstore environment, which is bike courier. And in this way, you can connect it, but also integrate it with the rest of your retail processes. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, fascinating. Sarah, maybe we were getting almost to the end. We have some time, but could you summarize it? What are the basic challenges and how to start with all this?
Yeah, so I think, we've covered a lot of different examples, but I think there's two or three things that I would say are really the bottom line in terms of how robotic automation can help address some of the challenges that retailers are dealing with today. I mean, first of all, complexity and reducing that and increasing efficiency is a given. That's definitely a no-brainer. Improving throughput. Improving therefore delivery times. Those are very key areas. but also there's some other areas to how to make best use of the workforce that you have with the labor challenges, make the best use of what you have and mitigate the need for large scale expansion of that labor if the labor is just not available. I mean, we're not looking to put people out of jobs, obviously, but at the same time, we want to make those workers more satisfied in their jobs, because we know that there's issues there. There's issues with labor shortage. So again, automation and is a big help in those areas. Giving flexibility to our customers, that's another area that's really important for us and for automation overall. Give people a flexibility and the options they need to address not just the problems that they have today, but be ahead of the problems that are coming up around the corner. And then the final comment I'd make, and again, this may be an opportunity for Varun to say a few more words, is just how doable this is. I mean, I think often people look at things like automation and they think, how do I get started? And the reality is that though obviously implementation time and cost will depend on scale, no question about that, and scope. I mean, there's some pretty large jobs that we've done in the past as well. But I think it's also important to note that there's some areas where you could just focus on maybe just the returns or doing a micro fulfillment center, and where time to value can be a lot faster maybe than people think. And as any type of digital transformation automation, you need to often think about this as a journey. You get started and then gradually then you can build up and expand. And certainly, we'd be happy to spend time walking through any specific questions or issues that any of the companies on the call might have as to what makes sense for where they might want to start. But I think that's something that I really like to sort of push that point home, that even though this looks intimidating, that there's the on-ramp to get started with automation is not necessarily as difficult as people think. Varun, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, absolutely. Right. I mean, if we take the example of Sodimac, right, the first use case that we covered, I mean, they started by, I mean, implementing e-commerce, right? I mean, that was their main pain area, and they found some space in a warehouse, started with e-commerce operations, started delivering orders from it, and after that they looked at some other low-hanging fruits, right, replacing forklifts, and just getting the basic sanity of operations in. And after that, after careful planning and execution, is when we eventually got the warehouse to the level that that it's currently at. And while that implementation was happening, right, I mean, they also implemented in within their stores small click and collect 3-4 bot systems, right? Very easy to deploy. Once they figured out the deployment in one store, it was very easy to scale across 6 or 7 stores in a matter of few months. And of course, nothing happens in a day, right? But if we take it step by step, then I think it's very, very doable, and these technologies are very much within reach now.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of time when people got used to these robots. You already see these autonomous delivery robots within hotels. If you have forgotten your toothbrush, and in some hotel chain, you call, then a robot will deliver a toothbrush at your room. So that is also on a smaller scale something that we'll be seeing more and more, I expect, especially about the difficulty to get new people inside, and and it can be cost effective. So I expect companies and people are getting used to this kind of robots, driving around within hotels, in warehouses, and stores. So that's also something that we will see. Do you agree, Sarah?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I will say that you've got, I mean, I was involved in robotics quite a bit in a couple of my previous incarnations, as you say, and there's pockets of this happening everywhere. And I mean, it's still early days, right, as to where we will go with robots. But what I think I like about supply chain optimization in particular, though, is this just makes sense. I mean, there are certainly lots of examples where robots are almost a little bit of a novelty right now in terms of what they do and what they deliver. But in the warehouse, it's a very easy to quantify value in terms of the value that robotics and robotic automation brings to the warehouse. It's one of those problems that really needs to be solved with technology like this versus some of the other areas with robotics. But I mean, as I say, I think more and more as we progress and it's starting to accelerate, we're going to see more and more rollout of robots in all sorts of parts of society. But this is definitely one of those examples where it just makes sense when you walk into these warehouses and see the speed at which things are moving, goods to person with robots in play. I mean, you can tell it's just such a good use case for robotics right now.
Yeah, and as we see here, most of the warehouses have different areas, and like you see here, so there are different areas where you can see if it makes sense, if there is a bottleneck, or if there are some needs to optimize it. And maybe Sarah or Varun, maybe you can explain, apart that you are a supplier of certain robots, you also have a layer where you can attach all these systems to a backend, I would say. So you have a warehouse execution system to connect it all.
Yeah, so I think maybe I'll start, Varun, and then maybe you can kind of weigh in with some additional color commentary. I mean, this I think is a very important part of our DNA as a company. I mean, we started off doing the robots. I like to think of the robots as the worker bees, but really more and more the power that GreyOrange brings to play is in the software itself, the Grey Matter software that kind of sits at the heart of everything. And you can think about this as really orchestrating all of the different worker bee robots, be they our robots, or indeed we have a network of partners that we work with as well, because there's lots of companies out there that have specialty robots that do different types of tasks particularly well. And then the other thing is we think of all of these things effectively as kind of like agents within the network. So we're orchestrating not just the robots, not just a robot control system with a robot, we're orchestrating everything end to end, whether it's the people. I mean, everything is part of this orchestration optimization process. And the other thing I would say actually about GreyOrange, if I could just blow our trumpet briefly at the end of this webinar, is, we've just celebrated our 10th birthday. So we've been doing this for a while. So we've built up a lot of expertise. We're doing some really quite complex and difficult deployments out there. I think right now we're up to about 6,000 robotic agents at something over 50 sites. I forget the exact number. And somebody was saying to me the other day that we're processing on average about 640,000 optimizations a minute. So we've got a lot of experience in this area that we've built up from doing a lot of these deployments with robots, and that's all baked into this software. So our software, the Grey Matter software, it runs in the cloud. It's modular, so we're solving the sort of problems that we're seeing in the warehouses today, but we're also we've designed that platform to be extensible, so we can add in more capabilities and deployment scenarios in future. And so really the Grey Matter software, more and more for GreyOrange, that's kind of like the heart of what we do. And it's a journey for many of our customers, as Varun said. I mean, they start off with a particular part of automation, and then they see the benefits, they get the return on investment there, and then they're looking to expand and do more and more automation. And that fits very well with what we do, because we have this cloud software that's continually improving, and as I say, supported by these worker bee robots. Some of them are ours, and some of those are working with our partners. Varun, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I mean, it was a great summary, Sarah. And I mean, just one point that, I mean, why the need for such a software platform, right? What we call Grey Matter is, I mean, when we start off on the journey, right? I mean, if we start automating one part of the warehouse, then what happens is then that part of the warehouse is running fast, right? And rest of the warehouse not so much, right? And essentially, what we have realized is multiple different kind of automation systems. For them to work together, you need an orchestration layer which understands robotics, and which is not the same as managing people, right? I mean, they need a quite bit of handholding, and B, they can do 24/7 work and can work quite optimally as well. And I think that's what Grey Matter does for us here. orchestrating a wide variety of agents, not only the agents that GreyOrange makes, but also third-party agents. Essentially, we onboard continuously on our platform.
Yeah, and to get it right, you are connecting to a warehouse management system, because warehouse management system, all are also orchestrating to some extent, but on the execution part, you need another warehouse execution system to make sure that especially the robots are doing the right stuff. Varun?
Exactly, exactly. So the warehouse execution systems tend to be, I mean, these have evolved over the years, definitely, right? But they still tend to look at things from somewhat static perspective, right? They would look at batching, waving,
Hmm.
and try to optimize pick path of people and so on, right? But when it comes to robots, right, the same rules don't apply to them. You can be having waveless operations. Your pick paths are much more dynamic, and just the kind of optimization that one can do with robotics is at a completely different level, right? And of course, we work alongside WMS, as you mentioned,
Hmm.
and we essentially work as an orchestration layer, coordinating multiple robots, multiple processes within that warehouse.
Yeah. So in my career, and I'm working in this business already for 25 years, I've seen a lot of warehouses, highly automated, hardly automated, and all things in between. What I experienced, what I've seen, most of the warehouses where it has been automated to some extent, you see areas, and maybe this typical area, a high-rise warehouse, is connected to the warehouse management system, whereas some areas not. So what I've seen most of the times, these areas, are patches of automation, whereas you are creating a whole layer in your warehouse execution system in between, where you can also connect all the different areas, where it might be with autonomous picking robots or not, or manually. So basically, you are creating this layer all over the warehouse, and not so much with the specific areas with patches of links to the warehouse management system, Varun.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, that's quite interesting to see that, and that it's changed, but you have to see it. And I've seen so many highly automated warehouses, and some areas it's manually, and you get a disconnect, and that's most of the time the challenge when you look at the warehouse environment. All right, so we're almost done. If there are some questions, but I see we are almost out of time. So if you have some pressing questions, you can start to ask them right now. And I have a starting question, or otherwise, we have also an after talk right after this. Varun, Sarah, and myself will be sitting down in the lounge. Um, to wrap it up, Varun, uh, where should you start with all this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Essentially, that's a very loaded question, right? But I mean, one needs to essentially, right, again connecting back to the mind map, right, which we had earlier. Um, select an area where you have relative flexibility to experiment. Let's say some area is available in a warehouse, or an operation is a major pain point, right? Let's say if wherever there is high growth possibility, take that, uh, do something, start a pilot. If I mean, it's I know a lot of people face challenges in integrating with the WMS, right? I mean, uh, probably at the beginning you don't need to integrate with the WMS, right? Implement something, start to get business benefits out of it, take it step by step, and just try to gain wherever basically most advantages are. And I mean, a good way to do this is essentially engage with any vendor, right? I wouldn't say engage with GreyOrange, but I think there are a lot of good players in the market, right? Who are able to basically get into discussions with retailers, right, and understand, do a discovery process, understand what their challenges are, and then recommend them a starting point, looking at what basically the time and space in which they are in, right, the kind of budgets that they might have available, and then essentially put something into action. Essentially, I would say that would be the best way.
All right. We're running out of time. I can talk about creating heat maps with wearables and Google Glasses. So I've seen that, and maybe you have a opinion about that. But I would like to suggest to have this conversation right after this in the lounge. So if you want to talk about heat maps in a warehousing environment in Google Glass, especially if Varun has an opinion about that. But basically, I would like to invite you to the lounge right after this. So we'll be there in the next 30 minutes because there's so much to talk more about this. And for further reading, like I mentioned and Sarah has explained, we have created this mind map. You can download it. And we also have created a very practical checklist how to start with some burning and painful questions to address about all this matter. So please download this. And with this, I would like to thank you, the audience, for watching. And, Sarah and Varun, especially, I'd like to thank you for your expertise and your explanation. So, Sarah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, Varun, thank you for the explanation of this very interesting cases. So I would like to say thank you again for your expertise, and for the audience, thank you for listening. And if you are listening to the recording, there's a lot explained, and you can download these mind map and checklist. And with this, I would like to wrap up and thank you for your time. And maybe I see you in another webinar. And maybe I see you next in the lounge. Thank you and bye-bye.
Goodbye.